Dr. Chuck Chakrapani is something of a Renaissance man. So he's a local Torontonian, and he's a psychologist by training, but a data scientist by profession. And he's the president of, I think, Canada's largest independent market research firm. He's written over 20 books, one of them which you may have heard of called Unshakable Freedom, Ancient Stoic Secrets Applied to Modern Life. Today, his talk is on his forthcoming book, How to Be Stoic When You Don't Know How. And this talk is right at the center of the bullseye in terms of our theme for the day, which is practice. I'm really excited to invite Chuck. He's going to talk about theory of Stoicism, but specifically mental exercises that you can use to train these Stoic theories into practice and bring into your life. So will you join me in welcoming Dr. Chuck Chakrapani to the stage?
Thank you. How to be a Stoic when you don't know how. What do? This is what I do. I go to a library, start reading. It's okay, for a while it goes well, and then you find there are so many concepts. Concept after concept after concept of concept. And so little time. So you start like that and end like this. Now, the fact is, Stoicism, to understand the basics, it's very simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, think of Stoicism as a symphony. Okay? Stoicism is a symphony. If you go to a symphony, for the full symphony orchestra consists of 100 musicians or more. And yet, if you observe closely, about a third of them are playing just one instrument, violin. And 2/3 of the orchestra is playing just 4 instruments. And 95% are playing only 8 instruments. So even though it looks chaotic, even though there are 100 musicians, they are just playing 8 instruments. Stoicism is very much like that. The basic concepts are few. There are many variations. You can go into depth, but the basic concepts are few. Okay. What's the purpose of Stoicism? It has only one purpose, to make you happy, to let you have a good life. Okay, that's the purpose of Stoicism. It's eudaimonic philosophy. So how to be happy. Okay? And it also says, what is the raw material you have? What's the raw material which you can use to make yourself happy or to have the good life? It says the raw material you have is what they call impressions. If you are hungry, that's an impression. If you think the room is too cold, that's an impression. If you think the room is too warm, it's an impression. If you think your life is going nowhere, that's an impression. Okay, all these are impressions. Some of these impressions are true, some are false. Okay. So how do you take these impressions and convert this into eudaimonia, or the good life? That is the basic challenge of Stoicism. Okay? What they say is, to do that, you need 4 special skills. They are wisdom, justice, moderation, and courage. And you need to practice 3 disciplines: the discipline of Ascent, the discipline of desire, and the discipline of action. If only you could do that, take your judgments and use these skills and use these disciplines, you will have a good life. Okay? This is the basis of Stoicism. Okay? So all you have in life are impressions. Think about it. Everything is an impression. You lose your job, that's an impression. The doctor says you have cancer, that's an impression. How do you take all these impressions and have a good life? Okay? So, the way I'm going to explain this is using a metaphor of a house. Okay, if you look at a house, it has foundation going in 4 directions. And it has 4 walls. And it has 3 windows. And you have roofs sloping in 2 directions. Keep this in mind. So think of it as Stoicism. Okay, what are the foundations? What are the walls? What are the windows? What's the roof? Okay, that's what we're going to be talking about. Let's start with the foundation. What's the foundations of Stoicism? What does happiness mean to you? What does happiness mean to you? What does a good life mean to you? Anybody want to tell me what good life means to them? Or you want me to tell you? Okay, there are many things. If you are in sub-Saharan Africa, and then you want to have, if you don't have any meals, your next meal is your happiness. Okay? If you are in a subsistence economy, if you have 3 meals a day, that's happiness. If you are a millionaire in New York, maybe $1 billion would make you happy. If you are like me, a good meal and a cigar is the definition of happiness. So happiness depends on who you ask. But Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, had a very, very neat definition. He said happiness is a life that flows smoothly. Think about it. Happiness is a life that flows smoothly. That means if you look at the bird, or any bird, it glides. What is our life? Our life, we have full of problems. And I haven't even scratched the surface, right? So you ask, why do we have all these problems? Why can't we glide like a bird in the sky? Okay. And the Stoics said, you have all these problems because you don't live in accordance with nature. You have all these problems because you don't live in accordance with nature. Big deal. I don't even know what living in accordance with nature means. What does it mean? Does anyone know what it means? It's kind of confusing, isn't it? Live in accordance with nature, it looks kind of fancy. It says something, but what does it say? How do you live in accordance with nature? Stoics said, live in accordance with nature means live in accordance with your nature. What is our nature? We cannot fly like an eagle because flying is not our nature. We cannot pounce like a tiger. Pouncing is not our nature. We cannot swim like a shark. Swimming is not our nature. We cannot hop like a kangaroo. Hopping is not in our nature. So what is our nature? Our nature is we can think. We are rational. So, when you are not rational, then you are not living according to nature. That's your nature. It also has another interpretation. It's also nature of the world. What is the nature of the world? It's reality. Okay? We complain about reality all the time. This room is too cold. The room is too warm. Okay, we complain about reality. You are in Canada, and you just go out in January, people complaining about snow. I'm in Toronto in January. That's a reality. Okay, so our life doesn't run smoothly because we don't live in accordance with our own nature and with the nature of reality, with the nature of the world. That's the reason why our life doesn't run smoothly. Okay? So if we have to be sure that we live in accordance with nature. If you want to prove to yourself that how much you complain about reality, how much your thinking is not rational, I suggest this exercise. I call that friction finder. You can buy this counter for about $6 at Amazon. Just buy one. If not, carry a notebook with you. Whenever your thinking is not in line with reality, just click on it. Don't do anything, just click on it. Whenever you say, I should have done that. You should have done that? What does it even mean? You are fighting reality. If I should have done that. No, you can't do that now because it's too late. You should have done that. So it contradicts reality. I would have done that. I should have. Or, oops, I'm late. I'm going to be late. If you're going to be late, you are going to be late. So you're complaining about reality or not being rational. So do this exercise for a week and you'll find out how much of our thinking is irrational. How much of our thinking is fighting reality. Okay? Now, why do we have these problems? Why aren't we aligned with nature? The Stoics said, it is your thoughts that create your unhappiness. People are disturbed by things that, they are not disturbed by the things that happen, but by their opinion of these things. You know, the way we think about those things, that's what makes us unhappy. You may object to that. You may object to that and say, no, Chuck, it's not so. Because I go my annual checkup, the doctor gives me a good report, I'm happy. The doctor gives me a bad report, I'm unhappy. I go to work. My boss calls me and says, you are promoted, that's good news, I'm happy. He says, you are fired, that's bad news, I'm unhappy. So what do you mean by my thoughts create my unhappiness? You know, you want me to be happy when I am fired? Do you want me to be happy when I get a bad medical report? Stoic said, you are really clueless. He says, look, you are fired is the stimulus, not the good news. You interpret it as good. Two people can be fired on the same day. One person might say, God, what am I going to do? This is terrible news. You are unhappy. The other person might say, Jesus, I was coasting on this job for so long. This gave me an opportunity to just take some time off, rethink what I want to do, and reshape my life. It's good that it happened. Okay? So it depends on how you interpret it. Two people may get the same, within quote, bad medical report. One might say, God, this is horrible, this is terrible. The other person might say, this is a wake-up call. I'm glad I have time now, I can exercise or do whatever, eat properly and do something better. So it's the same thing, the way you look at the world. Okay, so the impression, that's why impressions are so important. Okay? It is so critical in Stoicism. Epictetus said that our most important job is to test out impressions and accept only that pass the test. And then he went on to say, instead of doing just this one thing right, we burden ourselves with so many things that they weigh us down. Remember that your only job is to test your impressions and see whether they pass the test. Okay? If you do anything else, you are weighing yourself down. Okay? But then, like all great things, it is easier to say, difficult to practice. So for the next few minutes, we'll be talking about how we go about practicing this. Okay? In fact, Viktor Frankl said this, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. What that means is this. If somebody says something, it appears as an insult to us. We immediately respond by insulting the person back. Somebody hits us, we immediately hit them back. But what Viktor Frankl was saying, between something happening and you responding, there is space. You can choose your response. That's what rationality is, to choose your response. Okay? And you have this power, and we give this up because we can't even finish for the person to complete his sentence. We want to interrupt because we just don't give ourselves space to respond. And this is particularly critical. In our response lies our growth. That the way you respond will decide whether you're going to grow or you're going to stagnate. There's freedom. That means we are going to be free or forever be complaining. will depend on the response you choose. Okay? So now, if you doubt the fact that you have a choice, try this exercise for a week. Who doesn't have one of these? Everybody has, right? Carry on. That's you have to have. In modern life, everybody has one. If you look at that, it has two handles. One is a pull handle, the other one is a lift handle. So pull handle, you use the pull handle to pull the bag behind you, and what that does is, it's very comforting. It doesn't matter how heavy the bag is, you can easily pull it behind you. It works beautifully, most of the time, but not all the time. If you are walking up the stairs, will it work? It might work, but it'll damage the wheels if you pull behind you when you're walking up the stairs. If it is a muddy area, will it work? No, it won't work. So there are times when you use the other handle, then you don't use the pull handle, you use the lift handle. Think about it, it's the same thing when we deal with people. Suppose you are angry with your friend. It's not working. You are angry with that person and that person is angry with you. It's not working, so you're using the pull handle. Try the lift handle. Say, this is not working, but after all, this person is my friend. And if he did something stupid, so did I. I've done so many stupid things in my life. So why be so angry? Or, even though this was stupid, there are hundreds of times he did things that are good. That's the reason why he is a friend. When you think like this, suddenly your anger goes away and you deal with things differently. Okay, that's where you have the choice. Instead of continuing to be angry, if you are angry, the other person is angry, you are even more angry, that person is even more angry, and this goes on and on and on. Use the other handle. Use the other handle. So every time your life is not working well, you have a choice. You have a choice. That's what the Stoics said. You have the choice. You can be rational. Okay, rationality is your distinct trait, because which no other animals have. So, how do you do that? One of the things you have to realize is our problem comes about because we try to control what we cannot control. Okay? We try to control what we cannot control. How many of you do this? Yes, all of us do that. Right? We try to control what we cannot control. Okay, what's the point in complaining about snow in January? Can you control it? Can you stop it? We cannot stop it. We cannot control it. So we make ourselves miserable by complaining about things that are not under our control. And if you think what is not under our control, you will be amazed. Your past is not under your control, right? You cannot go back and change your past. There's no point in saying, oh, I had a bad childhood. So big deal. You cannot change it. How? Worrying about what will happen in your future. What will happen? Whatever happens will happen. So, your family, is it under your control? Well, you can see that your spouse may be getting along very well. One day she walks out or he walks out and there's nothing you can do about it. Your family is not under your control. Your possessions is not under your control. Your stock market can go down, banks can collapse. Your lifespan. I can live to be 120, or when I walk out, I can be run over by a car and be dead this afternoon. We don't know that. Your health is not under your control. What others say or do is not under your control. Your reputation is not under your control. I cannot control what you think of me. Okay. So in short, whatever is not outside of your will, you don't control. So that means pretty much everything in your life is not under your control. Okay. So, when you try to control what you cannot control, You become anxious. You become angry. Sometimes you become a slave to somebody who controls what they can give you. If you're so attached to your job that you have to have your job, you might do something unethical to keep your job. So the thing is, when you attach to externals, you become anxious, angry, and you're fault-finding, you're worried. You become a puppet, you become a slave. I suggest you do this exercise for a week. I call it externals eliminator. Is this under my control? If not, it is nothing to you. What you cannot control is nothing to you. If it snows in January, is it under your control? No, it's nothing to you. Whatever you cannot control is nothing to you. If you had something bad in the past, it's nothing to you. Whether you're going to live to be 100 years, it's nothing to you. Whether you're going to strike it rich, it's nothing to you. Whatever you do not control is nothing to you. Practice this for a week. Whatever you don't control is nothing to you. Act on what is under your control. This is a more important part. It's a very important part of Stoicism. Act on what's under your control. Most people may say, oh, I don't care about what I don't control. But there are also things that are under your control, which you can act on. If you deal with only those things under your control, no one can stop you. What are the things that are under your control? Things under your control are what you think. Nobody can control what you think. You control it. What you feel. Nobody can control it. You control it. What you feel, what you think, nobody can control those things. You control it. So you act on what you control. Okay, don't act on what you don't control. Act on what you do control. If you deal with only those things that are under your control, no one can force you to do anything you don't want to do. No one can stop you. You will have no enemy, no harm will come to you. Think about it. All you have to create your happiness is to ignore what you don't control and act on what you can control. When you do that, you will have no enemy because you are not complaining about anything that's not under your control. You are doing just what you can control. That's all you are doing. But that is enough to create a happy life. That is enough to create a fulfilling life. It is enough to create a life that's worth living. So this exercise is for a week, action activator. When it is what is under my control, act on what is under your control. Act on what's under your control. Do not do what's under your control. You lost your job. What is under your control? You can still enjoy your meal. You can brush up your resume on LinkedIn. You can call an employment agency. You can do a lot of things that's under your control. But instead, we're getting depressed that we lost our jobs. Instead of doing what is under our control. Okay, act on what's under your control. Don't worry about what's not under your control. Okay? So these are the 4 foundations of Stoic philosophy. First is happiness is a life that flows smoothly, and our life is not flowing smoothly. Okay? If your life is flowing smoothly, probably you are wasting your time here, with me anyway. So life is not flowing smoothly. Number 2, the reason why it doesn't flow smoothly is we don't act according to nature. That is, according to our nature, according to the nature of the world. We are constantly in conflict with our own nature, with the nature of the world. That's the reason why our life is not working properly. And to make it work properly, you have to stop controlling things that you cannot control and act on what you can control. Are you happy? That's Stoicism 101. Okay. But we're not done yet. Because we know the foundation, but you can't live on a foundation, right? We need a house. We can't live on a foundation. So, we have to have walls, we have to have windows, we have to have the roof. So what are the walls? The 4 walls. The 4 outer walls there are 4 special skills you would need They're also called four excellences, or they're also called virtues. Okay? Four virtues, four excellences, the four walls. Okay, these four walls are this. You have to be able to answer four questions. You know all this, you know the foundation. The first question you have to answer is what to do, what not to do. At any given condition, what you should do, what you should not do. That's number one. Question number two, who does it belong to? Give every person his or her due. Okay, give everyone their due. That's number two. And that is question number three. What's question number three? What to select, what not to select. And question number four. What you should be afraid of, what you should not be afraid of. Four questions. What to do, what not to do is wisdom. To know what to do, what not to do is wisdom. To know who does it belong to and give everyone their due is justice. Okay? To know what to select and what not to select is moderation, not going into excess. And to know what you should be afraid of, what you should not be afraid of, what is terrible, what's not terrible, that is courage. Courage. Okay? So these are the four skills you should have, four skills you should develop to practice Stoicism, or four virtues, as they use the term virtue in modern parlance. Virtues kind of looks pompous. Okay, let's say four special skills. Chris Gill said we can call it four special skills. I like the term four special skills. Okay, let me walk you through this. Wisdom, what to do, what not to do. Judging things correctly. This we have already seen before, because we do things that are under our control. We don't do things that are not under our control. Okay, that's wisdom. First skill is wisdom. Okay, so it rains. What is not? It rain is not up to you. So you don't complain about it. You can take an umbrella. You can do that. So what to do? Not complain about rain. What not to do is to complain about rain. What to do is take an umbrella. There is turbulence when you are sailing. Don't complain about the turbulence. It's not under your control. Control the sails. That's under your control. So you always do things. You ignore what is not under your control. Do what is under your control. That is wisdom. Okay, that's wisdom. Well, I go to the doctor. Doctor says I have cancer in the early stages. Can I do anything about it? No, I already have cancer. So it's nothing to me. Can I do anything about it? Yes. Go radiation, chemo, eat properly, and I'll be cured. I'll do that. So you ignore what is not under your control, do what's under your control. That is wisdom. This exercise you can do for a week. In fact, you should do for the rest of your life. I call it Epictetus examination. Okay, it tells you it is a basis of wisdom. What to do, what not to do. Do what is under our control. Do not worry about what's not under our control. This is a central theme of Stoicism. It's called the dichotomy. See, certain things are under your control, don't worry about them. Certain things are under your control, do them. Okay? Okay. The second thing is justice. Whose is this, whose is not this? You have to give everyone their due. We think we are all alone, but basically you are connected to your family and to your friends and your country and ultimately to the world. So that means you don't you do things that are not just good for you. It's good for your family, for your friends, for the world at large. That means if if the world is polluted, you do something to clean it up. Okay, anything that it's not. You don't want to grab that belongs to somebody else, because ultimately these things won't make you happy. So the concept of justice, the virtue of justice, in Stoicism is that we are connected to this world. We are connected to this world because it's an expanding circle. Here, we start with you and your family and your friends and the world and everything else. Okay? So whenever you have things like greed and things like coming on, there's an exercise suggested by, sort of suggested by Marcus Aurelius. This thought is unnecessary. This thought is destructive. It's not even my true thought. I don't want to be a greedy person. It's unjust. So whenever you have thoughts of greed and grabbing, or it doesn't matter if we pollute, it doesn't matter, or I can have 10 plastic bags or whatever, think about it and say, this thought is unnecessary. This thought is destructive. This is not my true thought. It's unjust. Okay? So I call this a Fab 4 exercise. This is to practice justice. Then we have the moderation. The third skill is moderation. What to select, what not to select. Okay? We got this great buffet. How many people can't resist emptying a whole bowl of chocolates? Okay. Basically what we have is this kind of, we indulge in excess. If a glass of wine is good, 2 glasses better. 3 is even better. How about 4? How about 5? How about 6? So what we do is we continue indulging. At some point you become an alcoholic. How about food? Yeah, if 1 dessert is good, 2 is better, 3 is even better, 4, 5. At some point you become obese. Okay, whatever is good, taken it to the extreme, negates itself. Okay, so you have to say when to select, when not to select. That is the third skill. So more is better is one of the reasons why I do it. Why not? Because I can afford it. So you buy unnecessary things because you can afford it. Okay? And sometimes we do it to impress others. You buy a bigger car, bigger house, not because you need a bigger house or a bigger car, but it impresses somebody else. Okay? And secondly, we also are tempted by our mind painting a positive image. You go there, see a pair of shoes and say, wow, this is beautiful, and you can imagine how beautiful you would look at that pair of shoes or in that dress. Except that after 6 months, you don't wear it anymore. In fact, I've seen people who would go to the walk-in closet and say, I don't have anything to wear. I walk in and have a look at it and say, it's bulging with clothes, about 300 dresses, and they don't have anything to wear. Because the mind keeps painting a positive image. So we indulge in excess for various reasons. So to get away from it, I suggest this exercise, pause and ponder. Will the pleasure last? Yeah, I think this stress will make me feel good, but will it do so 3 months from now, 6 months from now? Or will I be looking for another dress? Will it harm me or others? If you become an alcoholic, it not only harms you, but it harms your family. So will it harm me or others? It's not just you, for others. Am I doing it for approval? Am I doing it to impress others? Okay. And then the final skill that you would need is courage. Courage is understanding what is terrible and what is not terrible. Okay, what is terrible and what's not terrible? What you should be afraid of. It's terrible, you should be afraid of. Not terrible, you should not be afraid of. Is death terrible? Is disease terrible? Is old age terrible? What is terrible? What is terrible to you? Anything terrible? Well, for most people, disease is terrible, poverty is terrible, death is terrible. But Stoics say, no, they're not terrible. They are reality. It's not, whatever is reality is not terrible. Poverty, disease, death, these are not terrible. You don't control it. What is terrible is your faulty judgments. That's terrible. You control it. So what is terrible and what's not terrible comes from your judgment, not from out there, not from over there. Poverty is not terrible. Death is not terrible. Disease is not terrible. Not that you would invite it, not that you should relish it. It's just if it happens, it's not terrible. You can still be happy. Okay? The reason why we do that is we act as though we are helpless. But we have resources to cope with anything that comes our way. Let me assume the average age of people here, older, younger, maybe 35 years. Suppose it is 35 years. You have lived 35 years facing all the problems you faced. They're going to repeat again. So if you faced it so far, you'll be able to face it in the future. But we say, so you ask yourself, if this happens, do I have any resource to cope with this? The line in the supermarket is long. Instead of complaining about it, say, what resource you have to cope with it? You have patience. You can be patient. You have something, you are doing something that is hard. Do you have any strength to, what strength do you have? What resources do you have to cope with it? You have endurance. Somebody is abusing you, and you have no way out. What strength do you have? You have mental strength. So you have resources to cope with anything that happens in your life, anything. Once you realize that, then you don't complain about what might happen in the future. Whatever happens, happens, because you have the strength to cope with it. Okay? So these are the 4 virtues, or 4 things, 4 special skills. So to review, the foundation is happiness is a life that flows smoothly. Our life is not working properly because our thoughts prevent us from doing that. And to make our life work properly, we should ignore what we don't control, act on what we do control. And to make this happen, we should apply 4 skills. Skill number 1, what to do, what not to do. Skill number 2, whose is this, whose is not this. Skill number 3, what to select, what not to select. Skill number 4, what to be afraid of, what not to be afraid of. Okay? So those are the 4 skills. Now we have our foundation, we have our walls. We need windows, right? Okay, what are the 3 windows? These are 3 disciplines you need to practice. Discipline of assent, discipline of action, and discipline of desire. Okay? Discipline of assent is every time you assent to something. Suppose you have impression that somebody insulted you. You react only if you say, yes, he insulted me. That's assent. Many times, the impressions are wrong. We are too quick to assent. We just say, okay, that's the way. Somebody could be, for example, you have a new employee in your office. You try to greet that person, try to talk to him, a bit non-communicative. You think maybe he's a bit arrogant, but maybe he's just shy. You assent to the impression that he's arrogant, but he may just be shy. Okay, so that's a discipline of assent. Before assenting to something, before agreeing to something, see, is this true? Examine your impressions. That is a discipline of assent. Okay? Yes or no? First window, discipline of assent. Number 2, discipline of action. When you practice justice, it means you act. That is, if somebody is hungry, give that person food. If your environment is polluted, do something to clean it up. It's all action, whatever you do outside of you. It's an action. That is, when you practice justice, you are practicing the discipline of action. Okay? And the third window is the discipline of desire, when to say yes, when to say no. So these are the three disciplines you need to practice Stoicism. Okay? Finally, we come to the roof. What's the roof? This roof is sloping in two directions. What are those two directions? If you look at it, now you have the skill. You have the foundation, you have the skill, you have the discipline. You may have the foundation, you may have the skill. You may have the discipline. Still, when you come to daily practice, you might forget to practice, right? We all do that. We all know the theory. But what you practice every day stays with you. If you don't practice, it weakens. Right? So you have to practice every day. How do you practice every day? One way of doing it is to create what are known as Stoic slogans. The slogans would be something like, I'm not going to stop the rain by complaining. So every time something is out of control, it's not under your control. Think of the old song, I'm not going to stop the rain by complaining. Then suddenly you realize, you are trying to do something that you cannot control. Or you can say, that handle didn't work. Remember the two-handle exercise? That reminds you, that handle didn't work. So halfway through you're angry, you're upset, and say, that handle didn't work. So you change your mindset. Or it could be, there's another pothole. My life is not running smoothly. So you make up something, whatever appeals to you. It doesn't have to be these. So if it is humorous, it's better. So immediately you see the absurdity of your thinking, and you change it. Yeah. And the final, second part of the roof is this. You want to enjoy your life. So far, we made it work properly, but you also have to enjoy your life. Now you are riding in the highway of life. There's no potholes, there's no traffic lights, you're gliding smoothly. You might as well enjoy the scenery, right, while you are driving. It's beautiful outside. Epictetus said, why not enjoy the festival of life when it is given to you to do so? It's given to us. Above all, Lucilius, learn to feel the joy. Learn to feel the joy. That's what the Stoics said. Now, I know what you are thinking, where is this festival of life is happening? Why wasn't I invited, right? I know you're all thinking, where wasn't I invited, right? If it's happening, where is it happening? Well, it's happening right here, right now. Okay? Marcus Aurelius was an emperor and a Stoic. And he ruled an empire that's the biggest the world has ever seen up until that point. The biggest the world has ever seen. So he was the most powerful man in the world. He could have had anything he wanted. What gave him pleasure? This is what he says. When you bake the bread, the crust splits open. Cracks in bread. That was the pleasure. Figs splitting open. The beauty of a ripe fruit. Ripe grains bending down. Eyebrows of a lion. So everything that you see is beauty. That's what he said. So you are here with 100 Stoics, 150 Stoics. Isn't it good? And there are people speaking what you want to hear. Maybe not me, but others. Okay? So isn't that beautiful? And you can afford to come here and listen to this. You can take time off for the day. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that wonderful? So if you look around, you'll see life is full of joy. We miss it. Okay? Louis Armstrong, the great jazz musician, he sang a song, What a Wonderful World. He wasn't talking about his $1 million or his fame. He was talking about flowers blooming, blue skies, white sky, white clouds, bright days, dark nights. rainbow colors, friends greeting each other, children growing up. So everything you have, if you look around, it's a wonderful world. This world is a mirror of infinite beauty, yet no one sees it. It is a temple of majesty, yet no one regards it. That was by a 17th century poet. This world is a mirror of infinite beauty, yet no one sees it. It is a temple of majesty, yet no one regards it. So, how do you see it? How do you regard it? Most of the time, we are busy living our life to see the beauty of it. So one of the things you can do is do morning meditation. Morning meditation, you don't even have to sit cross-legged and do something. When you are lying in bed before getting up, think about the things you have to be grateful for. Just you are awake, you should be grateful, right? And you have a whole day in front of you, you have to be grateful. You got friends, you have to be grateful. You got a family, you have to be grateful. There are so many things to be grateful for. Just think about it before getting up. Just for a few minutes, think what you should be grateful for. Think about what you should be cheerful about. And then prepare for the day. You might find people who are terrible to you, may insult you. How are you going to deal with them? Just prepare. And then go about doing it. And at the end of the day, you might have forgotten most of those things. And then review the day and see, could I have done anything better? Okay. So that is the house of Stoics. A smoothly flowing life, recognizing thoughts create our unhappiness, ignoring what we cannot control, acting on what's under control, using wisdom, justice, moderation, and courage, practicing the discipline of Ascent, desire, and action, living our everyday life carefully, and enjoying the festival of life. Okay, that is Stoicism. You know, of late something funny is happening to me. Whenever I feel sad, whenever I feel upset, whenever I'm angry, whenever I am irritated, I find somebody following me and laughing at me behind my back. I get this distinct feeling. So I stop and then look back. As the person gets closer, I find he's actually an old man. And then he comes still closer. Actually, I find he's my old friend Epictetus. You know, I said, "Yo, Epictetus, you have been friends with me for so long. Now I feel down and you're laughing at me." And he says, "Chuck, I know you are not very smart. So I ask you to do just one thing. Judge your impressions correctly. If you had done that thing right, you wouldn't be angry or upset. And you couldn't manage one thing right, and you expect me not to laugh?" Anyway, you know, if you get angry, if you get irritated, if you get upset, if you get annoyed, if you think life is passing you by, if you think you are not enjoying the festival of life, look over your left shoulder. Look over your left shoulder. Maybe an old man is following you too. Maybe his name is Epictetus. Maybe he's telling you, do this one thing right. Manage your impressions. If you do just this one thing right, you will never be sad, angry, or upset. Your life will run smoothly. This, my friends, so this world is a mirror of infinite beauty. See it. It's a temple of majesty. Regard it. It is a festival of life. Enjoy it. Above all, learn to feel the joy. This, my friends, is how to be a Stoic when you don't know how. Thank you.